exciting because at the state level, I feel like we're doing a lot in order to guard ourselves against a lot of what's going on at the national level. So there seems to be a lot of national discussion about our border, despite the fact that we live in a very different reality. So I'm proud of the work that we've done on the state level to normalize the lives of immigrants who live in our South Bay, who make our South Bay run, to acknowledge the fact, yes, thank you, to acknowledge the fact that, God forbid, a change at the national level that would border off, would wall off our one country from the other. You know, we're sitting here hearing about exciting ideas about a binational university, and at the national level we're hearing much different ideas about what belongs on our border. So I think at the state level what we're trying to do is provide a buffer and say we're doing these positive things for our community to ensure that no matter what happens, we can continue to grow and thrive as a community. And one of those things is raising the minimum wage. And I know always when you talk at a business forum, people don't usually like to talk about the minimum wage. But what's exciting about the increase in the minimum wage, if you look at my district, the average household income is in the mid-30,000s, right? That's really low. And the reason it's so low is because we have a lot of service workers who rely on low wage work. And we know when folks are basically making enough money to barely get by, they have no money to spend. And with so many small businesses in the region, when they have more money in their pockets and actually have more money to spend, we know that small businesses will thrive. And so it's an exciting opportunity over the next few years that we're going to raise wages of our working class, our poorest residents, in order to help increase the middle class, increase those business owners who rely on people having expendable income. And one of the other things I'd like to say about the state level that I'm really excited about is we spent this year at the state talking about environmental justice. And what was exciting for me is using National City as an example of what can be done when you incorporate environmental justice principles into your planning process. We did that, and it was always used as a model city. We continue to talk about what we've done on the Bayfront in Chula Vista, getting rid of the power plant and really reinvesting in smart growth that allows us and allows all of our residents to enjoy clean air and cleaner air and to work on these issues. So it's been exciting to see what we've done down in the South Bay really trickle up to say this is a model of what we can do for the rest of the state.
Is there more that the state could do to help out with the university project?
You know, we've been round and round on this, and we've tried to go the route of a state college or a state university. We're not close in line to be the next one, and we kind of, I think, found that out. I think there were years and years, I'll be real blunt, and hopefully not hurt anyone's feelings, but years and years of this talk about a UC campus that when some of us got in there who don't have the luxury of leaving in 3 or 4 years, said, uh-oh, you know, people have just been saying this, but we have no real path that has been set up for this. So we've had those discussions, and I think Mayor Salas in particular has been very innovative in trying to figure out then what else we do with this. So we've had multiple meetings. I've said when those times come up, if there's funding sources, if there's somewhere we can get in line, let us know. We have, I think both Senator Weston and myself, very committed to doing what we can. But with kind of the changing vision, we need to know what those state resources are and how we could be helpful.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Senator Benueso.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, everybody, and a big shout out to Cindy Gomper-Graves for your wonderful work in the South Bay. Always coming to my office and working on the next project. I appreciate that very much, and everything she does to attract and keep businesses in the South Bay. So thank you for all of you for supporting Cindy and her wonderful work. But my name is Ben Wesson. I'm the senator for the 40th Senate District, which includes all of the South Bay, with the exception of City Heights. It goes up to City Heights, goes over the mountains into Imperial County. I represent all the border with California and Mexico. I serve currently as the chair of the state's Energy, Telecommunications, and Utilities Committee, where we're working on California's energy future. I'm very proud to represent the South Bay. South Bay is a wonderful community that is one of California's most diverse communities, a community with an enormous amount of potential, a community that needs to take advantage of its strategic location next to a border with a country that's the 15th largest economy. If we think of California and Mexico and the states around the border, we would be together the 3rd largest economy. Since I got elected in 2010, California went from being the 15th largest economy to now the 6th largest economy. And there is some thought that with Brexit happening, California can become the 5th largest economy in the world. And we're working not only very hard to make sure our economy grows, but that everyone in California shares in that economy, that it doesn't leave anyone behind. And those are some of the struggles that we're having in today's modern economy, that the middle class is shrinking. And South Bay is a largely middle class community. We need to, as many people mentioned, we need to provide higher paying jobs in the South Bay. Think about providing higher paying jobs to a large community that's largely middle income. I mean, we could grow the economy out there, but we could also improve people's lives in the South Bay and help business to have customers. Businesses need customers in the South Bay, and that's been one of the challenges citing certain businesses in the South Bay, that people want to come to communities that have excellent housing stock, excellent schools. People need good paying jobs to make sure they're able to participate in the economy. And I also serve on banking committee for the small businesses. It's really hard to do business in California, very hard. For big businesses, they're doing just fine, but small businesses struggle. They have access, they have problems getting access to capital. They have problems getting access to consumers. Consumers tend to want to go to the larger, well-known businesses, and the small mom-and-pop shops have been struggling in our state. We need to find a way, a strategy to start people off with their business in California. And I've also been working on that through the business and finance, the banking and finance committee at the state, to work on bills that create access to loans. I got a bill signed this year that will get smaller loans to people that need them, small business people that can get loans without collateral to start a business. But anyway, I'm really happy to be here and talk about more that we can work on together, not only the electeds, but working with you, the business people and the people in our community to come up with the best ideas and the best practices to get our community thriving.
Great, thank you. Mayor Serge Dedina, you've got a lot of those things going on in IB. What's it look like from your perspective?
Yeah, IB is doing absolutely amazing, and that's sort of exemplified by the fact that the data came out about home value increases in the county over the last year, and IB had this, Imperial Beach had the single biggest increase in home value, 12.8% in the county. So that says a lot about this really, really smart, sustainable, strategic sort of focus that we have at the city with our city staff, our city council, our private sector, our partners in the port, the Navy, the state of California, Sandiag, the county of San Diego, in really focusing on moving IB forward in a positive direction. And having been there since I was a little kid, it's really exciting to be the mayor of a city you profoundly love and see that progress happening. So there's three elements of that strategy that we're carrying out. First is quality of life, and that our focus is making sure that every resident in every street, in every neighborhood has access to a great quality of life. I don't care if you're working class, middle class, high class. I'm gonna make sure that everybody, there's never an excuse to have blight, or we're never an excuse not to have paved alleys, sidewalks, and make sure that kids and their moms and dads and their abuelitos can walk and push those strollers and ride their bikes to school. That's really profoundly important to me. So we're strategically focusing on that. That's our mission. If you talk to the folks at City Hall, that's 99% of the work that we're engaged in. So I'm really excited about that. And all of us in the South County know there's never excuse for blight. Blight is something that government creates and absentee landlords exacerbate, and I am focused on eliminating every empty lot covered with a chain link fence filled with garbage in IB, and I think we've almost done that. So that's something you're gonna hear a lot about. Really, really stoked that we're partnering with some of the best development companies in San Diego. Sudbury Development is doing a groundbreaking shopping center at 9th and Palm. We're gonna have grocery outlet. Our residents are really excited about that. We're gonna have a community center there so they can come and hop on Wi-Fi and drink a cup of coffee at the Starbucks. So it's really important. I see all my partners here in South County, especially David Alvarez with the Barrio Project, I'm going to make sure that every resident has access to quality retail and, more importantly, safe economic space. So I'm really excited about that. We've got the Bayshore, the Bikeway Village. Rex Butler and Coronado is doing that. That's going to be a groundbreaking project. And then when you see the design for our new beachfront hotel, it's going to be even better. Well, it's going to be as great as Piers South. So I'm really excited about that. All those monies from hotel development get reinvested right back in our community, improving the quality of life for the folks who live there right now. And then finally, we're surrounded, actually like most of our residents, our cities in South County, by open space. The South San Diego Bay on the north side, the Tijuana Estuary, and Mexico on the south side, bayfront on the north side, and then our beautiful ocean on the west side. So we're really managing, our Public Works department is managing our natural resources. That means dealing with sea level rise, which we're actively engaged in planning for, really making sure that we're dealing with making sure that every resident has access to open space. So getting rid of, along with Coronado and the port and the city of San Diego, getting rid of all those horrible chain link fences on the bayfront. And along the Silver Strand, we are sick of seeing ugly chain link fences around South San Diego Bay. Sick of it. Had it. And then finally, I brought the Ironman to IB. We had it at the 70.3 this weekend. The surf was pumping, but making sure that race was put on and the swim was able to happen required an amazingly complicated binational partnership with the government of Mexico, the state of Baja California, and our partners. Thank you, Greg Cox, at the County of San Diego. We got our beach open, but in 3 years, I want to solve this problem. It's really simple. We just got to make sure that we reuse, help Mexico implement the portable water reuse project, the purple pipe system that they had sort of moved on, and just make sure that, like in California, we focus on moving away from dumping sewage in the ocean and reusing that water. So IB's doing great. Come down. You want to surf with me, just let me know. Thank you.
You know, not to belabor the point, but just tell me a little bit more about this chain link issue. That's super interesting to me. What is the deal there?
For those of us who grew up in the South Bay, you just get used to it, but ride your bike around South San Diego Bay, and literally, and Ben knows this too, we all know it, we've got these communities surrounded by horrible, rusty chain link fences. Usually on the other side, it's a bunch of garbage, and it's like, we expect it to be normal. And having grown up in IB in a community, I used to play in chain link, in empty lots, and then all of a sudden there's these chain link fences. Well, puts it up, well, the absentee landlords, or the cities, or the state agencies, or you name it, they do it. And there's no need for them. I just came back from Jackson, Wyoming. We attended a conference with my wife. Beautiful city. Not a single chain link fence everywhere. So we just need to get over this idea that somehow, and more importantly, this mythology in the old school enviros who think that somehow poor people are going to dump mattresses in open space. And the fact is, no one's going to go jump into protected wildlife refuges. So that's not happening. So it's been great to systematically tear out those chain link fences. Coronado's leading that effort on the Silver Strand as well. Thank you, Bill, for that effort. It's really important. So all of us in South County are committed to that bayfront, to really making it a really world-class destination.
I'm telling you, that is going to be a national movement. No chain link.
Absolutely.
Because that is not just that is everywhere. So
Yeah,
super
it drives
interesting.
me
I didn't know
crazy.
about that. Okay, Ron Morrison, I think National City already came up here on this panel. How are things going there?
Well, things are going well. That's the reason it keeps coming up. But just to give you a little nutshell about National City, because most people, if you look at statistics, we have a census population of 60,000, and that tells you one thing. And we're 7.2 square miles, which tells you something else. That means extremely dense. We're the densest city in the county. What it doesn't tell you, though, is our daytime population on any average day hovers between 120 and 150,000. So in a very small area, you got a lot of people. And that also means you've got to provide services for basically 120, 150,000 people based on a population of 60,000, which means you got to have a lot of business. So that is exactly what we do. We are a very business-centered town. And so between families and businesses, it's balancing those two different things out and making that work. But at the same time, you say, okay, you're the densest city in the county already, and you're talking about open space. Well, our open space is, and our urban reserve is the weeds behind the backstop at the Little League field. That's it, folks. Other than that, You cannot tell any difference between our boundaries and the cities around us because it's houses on one side of the street, houses on the other side of the street, and unless you see a sign, you don't know where one city begins and the other ends. So very tight, very congested. How do you deal with all of that and make it work? And that's been part of the deal. At the same time, it was all mentioned about housing. We need more housing, and of all different levels. And if you take a look, where should housing go? Housing should go where you have the job centers and where you have the transportation. That is South County. That's where the housing should be going. I mean, that's what makes sense. That is smart growth. You should not be putting housing, I'm sorry, on the other side of Ramona. You know, sorry, Ramonians. But, you know, that's not where it belongs. But you got to make sure that if you're going to put housing there, that you've got the infrastructure, you got the jobs, and everything that goes with it. So as we're looking, in National City, we have a very aggressive housing program. You think, well, you're already the densest city in the county. There are no, I'm sorry, we don't have too many vacant lots with chain links because we don't have very many vacant lots. They're just, you know, everything is built on. So, but what are we looking at doing now? Even right now, as I'm speaking, we've got like blocks that are being demolished because what? We're getting ready for new construction and more dense construction. But we're putting in the infrastructure ahead of time. We just got finished in the last couple of years of putting in 5 miles of inner city bikeways. Now that's in the middle, not along railroad paths or along creek paths or something along this line. This is we're talking in small streets, and yet still putting in these and trying to be innovative, finding ways to do it to allow people to get around. At the same time, we're getting the awards for the most walkable city, the most bikeable city, all these different kinds of awards in an area that's that dense. At the same time, National City Boulevard, the half of it that is not the historic mile of cars, but the other half of it, we've already zoned it, guess what, for increased housing, allowing for, on that one 16-block section alone, 4,000 housing units by right now they can build. And if they do a traffic circulation study and mitigate for it, they can go up to 10,000 housing units by right. Why? Because that's where the housing should go. Then that's what we got to start looking at. Instead of everyone looking at our community and saying, we don't want any more, is how do we accommodate what is going to be the growth and put it in the right places? Because guess what? Our growth is not those people. Our growth is our children and our grandchildren. That is, and otherwise we're forcing them to move somewhere else because they don't have their availabilities here. So we're working on doing that, but at the same time, to accommodate all that, I think one of the things in the South Bay, if we are going to be taking on the growth both in jobs and in residents, we're going to be looking at our transportation systems, not only maintaining them and giving people choices and opportunities, but we're going to have to be improving our transportation systems. And that's going to take money, and that's going to take regional cooperation to make it happen. But if you take a look, South County is where it's happening. And it's all because of, look at these people out here in the audience, and our cities working together and saying, we're going to make it happen, we're going to make growth, and at the same time, we're going to make history. Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, Bill, actually, Bill, you and I have never met.
Jeff, actually, we did at Lead San Diego in 2010.
See,
I hate to
2010, come on.
I hate to play that card, but I must have been very memorable. Thank you.
So what have I missed in the last 5 years? No, tell us about. I mean, Coronado, I think, has got a sort of a different perch on the edge of South County.
We certainly do. Let me start though with the students. As the junior member of this panel up here, and probably the most excited guy to be a part of it, frankly, this is a very distinguished group. Those of you who are interested in public service and have a passion for not only serving your community, but perhaps even elected office, start early. It really is very fun. I got to be honest with you. So our binational story for Coronado started a long time ago, and it really is one of direct foreign investment, which is one that where we have $7 billion of assessed value real estate in Coronado, and fully $1 billion of it is owned by Latino interests. That's direct foreign investment. When it comes to our border being known and accepted by folks away from our region, I learned recently at the Mexican ambassadors meeting that we had with the SANDAG delegation that the junior staffers that work for the Mexican ambassador in D.C. have never been to the San Ysidro border region, and I'm going to make a personal effort as well as SANDAG staff to get those folks out here, learn about it. The ambassador talked about the first word that comes up whenever the ambassador meets with anybody other than somebody from California is security. And it's up to us as evangelists for our region to change that discussion. $1 billion of exports come from 31 states and cross the border and go to Mexico. So this is a national interest issue, one that crosses all across the country. I know you'll find this hard to believe that Ron Roberts and Gary Gallegos were the ones talking to the ambassador, and I was the one talking to the junior staffers. But the junior staffers actually asked me about something that Coronado is famous for, our condominiums that were called the Taco Towers for many, many years. And we no longer use that vernacular. I make the point, and they brought it up, and I was like, not since the 80s has that even been thought about. Coronado, frankly, is a model for assimilation in many ways. Latino folks who bought homes in those condo buildings ended up buying houses in town, had kids, sent their kids to school, started restaurants like Candela's, bought established restaurants like Tent City, and now they're opening retail establishments along our business district. And they're doing it, and the storefronts are great, and the manufactured goods that they're offering are very high end. And we're very excited to have that kind of economic development in our town now. As a kid growing up in Coronado, my mom bought her 72 Bel Air convertible at Derringer Chevrolet, which was an Orange Avenue business. I'm sure it moved to your National City mileage cars, Ron. Our city has changed economically, and so now that same car dealership is a high-end grocery store called Boney's that serves, and you might know the Boney's chain, a very upscale grocer. And that's really the story of our whole Orange Avenue business district, where the Hotel Del is the economic engine, and the trains of the car are the blocks, and the caboose of our town, which is where the ferry landings received so much attention lately, and our rapidly expanding 100 block of Orange Avenue with its Nicky Rotten's and Coronado Brewing Company and other kind of businesses that are really putting that end of the island on the map. I know Coronado's excited to engage regionally, not only with South County, but with the entire San Diego area, and I'm super excited, and totally, to use my mayor, who I love partnering with on lots of projects, to use one of his adjectives, totally stoked to be here.
Okay, now audience, get your questions ready, because I only have one question for the panel, and when we get through this, it's going to be your turn. But I thought I would take a moment just to ask all of you guys about the situation in El Cajon, maybe along a couple of dimensions. One, are they handling the issue of the video correctly? Is this policy we have the right one? And secondly, community outreach and engagement, managing people's reaction and the engagement in a way that's constructive. Has work been done on this? Do we have the right policies at the state level? Are the cities and the police forces properly prepared? And David, I don't know if you have any thoughts or if you were following along there, but.
Yeah, I was on the delegation trip to DC when all of this came down, and I arrived yesterday and had a chance to speak to our chief a little bit about that yesterday. And to the extent the conversation about community relations, I think that's really important, and that I can only speak to San Diego about that. I really don't have an understanding about what's going on in El Cajon and how they've dealt with it. On the first issue, though, I've been very clear for some time on the release of footage. I think that's important for transparency's sake. I know that the UT, along with a lot of the other media outlets, had to sue to get that video from an incident that occurred in San Diego, and won in that lawsuit to gain access to the transparency. I'm one who believes we should be transparent about that, but I understand that there's other issues, privacy rights when it comes to, especially to victims. So, that's a balance, but I side on or I tend to side on the transparency, always with every dealing in government.
Yeah. Greg, I don't know that the board has any influence directly over the sheriff's policies on this, but is this something you guys have talked about, or?
Well, we do control his budget, but but he is an independently elected official, and so we do have an advantage in this region where our district attorney, our sheriff, along with all of the police chiefs throughout the county, really work together, I think, in a very collaborative manner to try to have an effective regional policy. And I know that Bonnie DeManis has been working with all of those agencies and has come up with kind of a new protocol in regards to when videos will be released, how they'll be released, the context in which they'll be released. And I think the transparency is really important. On the other hand, I certainly don't want to be in a position to try to second guess law enforcement. I mean, I think there's some legitimate reasons why they need to kind of have an opportunity to investigate when there is a situation to make sure that all the information is there before anybody jumps to conclusions. And it's frustrating on the one hand because everybody, particularly now with communication systems that we have in place, everybody wants everything right now. But I think it's more important to get it right and to make sure that all the facts are out there before people start jumping to the wrong conclusions, and we see some of the repercussions of that in people being wrongly accused and wrongly chastised.
Marshall, there is a port police force. You guys talk about this?
Yeah, we have about 135 harbor police, and we are just now in the process of getting body cameras. We think that's very important, and to Councilman Alvarez's point, transparency, we're fully supportive of that. And as the other dynamic that I know our police chief, John Boldock, and Shelley Zimmerman, the city's chief, and others have been meeting regularly now with community leaders from different districts in the city and other member cities on a regular basis. So the outreach between the cops and community leaders, ministers, a variety of different interest groups is really important. And I think that the more we do that, the more we collaborate, the more we share and have ability to respond, I think we can avoid these unjust situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pamela, any thoughts? Do you guys feel prepared in Chula Vista should something like this happen?
I believe we are prepared, and we have been doing community policing for a long time. Diversity in hiring is also very important. And as another thing that is important is training on less lethal uses of controlling situations, because there's no reason if they did feel threatened, in my opinion, although I also am shy of second-guessing police, but this idea of killing somebody when a taser might have worked, although I know there was a taser used in that incident. I think the city of El Cajon has been doing a very good job. However, I don't really believe that selective releasing of still photos from a video helped the matter. I know it was intended to help, but either release the video or wait if you have to wait, but it didn't build confidence, I believe, to do that selective releasing of a still photograph. So
yeah.
It's a very delicate, difficult situation, but in the most part, I think that our region has had a really healthy relationship between law enforcement and communities. So this is a really tragic, unfortunate situation. I think we're all trying to figure out ways that we can ameliorate our programs and outreach to prevent it from happening again.
Yeah, yeah. Lorena, is the DA doing the right thing here? Is this the right policy or the wrong policy?
Well, I would, I think on balance, go for more transparent policy, obviously, and I'll echo what Councilmember Ben-Susan said. The problem is if you have a policy, then you need to stick to that policy, right? So if you say we're going to investigate before we release a video, then you don't release a still shot of the video, because that just grows, I think, in the community, a sense of disparity, that things aren't being handled correctly, and then selective release of maybe who this guy was and what his background was, which may or may not have any bearing on why a police officer, showing up at a scene doesn't have his dossier of who this person is, right? So it's a little irrelevant, yet that information is being released at the same time as a still shot. And I think realistically, we're all made to believe that we're being guided in a certain direction. I think the South Bay has had a very different approach, and I'm very proud of our police forces, both in Chula Vista and National City, and the community policing that's gone on there. I'm often asked in Sacramento, because we're dealing with these police issues a lot, and I'm very considered pro-police Democrat. You know, I was actually taken off the Public Safety Committee in Sacramento because I was too conservative for a Democrat, which a lot of people kind of thought was interesting. And yet at the same time, I fully support the Black Lives Matter movement. I think that we have to have more discussion. And I try to explain to people, you know, what we've seen in my district, what I get more complaints about is Border Patrol. And we've seen in the past, you know, some of these kind of unexplained shootings and things that have happened and some tensions with the Border Patrol when they come north from the actual border and some other issues we faced. But I think the police themselves in South Bay are doing well. And I think the DA, I'm sorry, you know, I appreciated she brought us in. She told us that this was going to be her policy and we're going to do this and we're going to be proactive and we're going to be transparent. And then the first situation that comes along, we have these kind of varying forces that you know, we can't see the video, but we're going to see this. So I think we've got to get it together, and I think she needs to do a better job.
Yeah. How about it this side? Ben, thoughts on this? I do think this is a state issue.
Well,
Or it could be, given, you know, what the policies should be. Here, I know that the DA feels that it's her responsibility and her authority to decide the release of this information. I've heard some different opinions around. I mean, what's your take on all this?
I think it could be handled better. I think it could be handled more delicately. You know, first of all, you need a police force that understands the community very well. And there needs to be a rapport with the community. There needs to be respect for all members of the community. And you know, law enforcement is a very difficult job. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want to be doing it. I had a friend out there in the field. I saw him one time doing his job, and you know, your heart races. It's a very difficult. It's you know, serving at the local level in the city, we had so many incidents where I just think, wow, some of these people are amazing heroes. But they need to be rewarded. We need people to be trained in the delivery of good services to the community. And you know, the law needs to be respected. People need to respect the law. The law needs to be enforced. But in that process, you know, there have been numerous instances where following a certain procedure, following a certain process of having respect for people, I think you can prevent an escalation of an incident. You can prevent a conflict between our public safety and the public. And where you can't, I mean, you have to take direct action. But it's a systemic problem in our country where the poorest of the poor, if they don't have an opportunity to get a job or to make a living or put food on the table, they're going to seek other means, and we've got to understand that. We've got to be sensitive to that. Number two, when people do go into jail or do their prison time and they come out, we have to assume that they paid their debt to society. And we have to stop punishing them. And I'm sorry, in our country, in our state, we stigmatize people for the rest of your life. If you go to prison because you're a foster child that didn't have parents, because you didn't have an economic opportunity, and you come out of prison, you know what? You're done. No job for you, no opportunity for you, and that needs to end. I think when we start on, I think in California we're moving in that direction. We're starting to recognize that once people do their time, we need the state and the business community and the local government to understand that they need to be able to reintegrate into our society and have that opportunity, because we're building this hopelessness in our country where people feel that they don't have opportunity, they don't belong to society, they can't vote, you know, they can't get a job. What are they supposed to do other than you know, go into the underground economy and break the law? And guess what? We're just making more work for the police out there. We're creating a bigger burden on government to put people behind bars. And frankly, California is leading the country in the amount of people behind bars per capita. We're turning that around. We're changing that. But we don't only release people from prison, you work on giving them an education, you work on finding them a job, and reintegrating into society, make them a productive taxpayer, and have them achieve their goals. We're working on that in the state. That will, you know, I understand at the local level, public safety has to start working on policies to, you know, address, you know, the violence and the crime. But it begins with proper training in the officer population. We have some amazing police officers that are dedicated to the service, and others that need a little more training in terms of how to deal with the public. I think a lot of problems will be solved that way.
Yeah, yeah. Serge, it seemed like there were sort of two issues here, you know, the police response, the police training, maybe three, the handling of the video and the still, but also the management of the community outcry. Like last night, it turned a little ugly. Do you guys talk about, you know, do you have a plan for this, or?
Yes. So I've been gone all week, so I've been really following what Al Cajon, despite via Twitter and some of the New York Times reports. But I want to talk about sort of managing the community and working with the community sort of to focus on really reducing conflict and really promoting sort of community involvement and partnership with law enforcement. And Imperial Beach has a great relationship with our Sheriff's Department, who provide our law enforcement services. And we're a really interesting case in which our crime rate has significantly dropped year after year. In fact, we have the third lowest crime rate in the county after Poway and San Marcos. So that's a remarkable testament to, in our case, the sheriffs really focus on, one, community policing, and number two, data-driven policing, so that they realize that putting a bunch of kids in jail for weed isn't gonna drop the crime rate, but focusing on crystal meth dealers and alcohol abuse, which relates to domestic violence, et cetera, is really where we're focusing. So that's been really interesting and exciting to work with our sheriffs. We tend to get the best of the best for the sheriff's lieutenants that manage our substation, because they tend to go on to higher things overall in the county. So that's been really good. And because we pay our sheriffs a fixed amount, they have no incentive, like in Ferguson, to start throwing people in jail, because it actually costs them more money. So I've been really proud of that very strong relationship we have of the sheriffs, and watching that crime rate go down, and it's not correlated with arrests. The second thing is, we have made a significant focus on working with the community, our business community, and the sheriffs on avoiding knee-jerk reactions to gangs, for example, or potential hotbeds of criminal activity. We had some gang problems at a park this summer on the beach, and rather than just sort of jump in and start beating heads, we work with the Business Improvement District and the Port of San Diego, our Chamber of Commerce, and the city and the sheriffs, and really focused on doing a lot more family-based programming there, and sort of like just making it a lot safer and attractive place to be. And that also has to do with getting rid of the chain link fences and the garbage and the blight, because we're gonna make every sector of your city seem really safe. Yeah. And then finally, one of the things that's really important in cities is making sure that everybody feels like they're treated fairly. And code enforcement, if you look at the post-Ferguson era, a lot of cities use code enforcement as a way to extract revenue from their lowest income residents. You know, when we're a profoundly blue-collar city, my folks have jet skis and motorcycles and RVs parked in their front yard, in their driveway. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. I think it's fine. But when they've got a code enforcement officer that has a stick up their butt about it and issues a fine because some neighbor complained, that creates conflict, seriously. And I knocked on every door during my campaign 2 years ago, and that was the most consistent thing that people complained about. Why are they worried about my jet ski? And to give credit to the city staff and our city council and our community, we came together, came up with a different code enforcement strategy, and we're treating people more equitably and going after absentee landlords and our own public blight, rather than focusing on low-income residents with a jet ski in their yard. So that's
Great, thank you. I didn't realize the spigot I was turning on there, Serge. So, Bill or Ron, anything to add? You guys have strong feelings here? That
Yeah, it's always rough being on the end of the table, but
sorry.
But yeah, you know, and I agree with, of course, with many of the things that have been stated to this point. And as you take a look, you know, we need to. It's that balance of needing to obey laws, at the same time supporting our law enforcement, but holding law enforcement accountable. And then when you have these type of investigations, you know, I agree. If you're going to set the rules, you need to have, from an investigative standpoint, you need to stick with them. And there's a reason for those rules. But one of the things that I think that is also creating a lot of this, because in just about every case that I've heard so far that has come up across the nation, there has been this term mental illness has went along with it. And for some reason now, we're expecting our police officers now to become psychologists and everything else under the sun, and you know, caseworkers and all along this line. And I think we need to also be taking a look at the opportunities, the resources, that we have in dealing with mental illness and those that are out on the street in particular, and how are we using it, and is it being used properly? Is it enough? What is being done, particularly here, I think in the San Diego region, it's been a ticking time bomb because, like it or not, we have attracted the homeless and mental ill from all over the country, not only our own, but from all over, and that's a ticking time bomb. And if we are not addressing it, it is going to cause more and more of this type of opportunities for these kind of incidents. In National City, let me just say one thing, and I've got to see a progression in law enforcement over the years that I've been in office, because when I first went into office, you went onto a high school, and if a police officer walked on that high school, the kids all went the other way. They ducked. I mean, they were gone. Now it is so refreshing to watch go on to like Sweetwater High School, go on to our junior high schools, go on to our elementary schools, and you see the police officers come on, and they get mobbed now with hugs, and I mean, and the attitude is so different. The same way there was a big concern about lowriders in National City. That was the big thing. That was a negative. You know what we've done? We've turned that around. Now the lowriders have their meetings. Guess where they have their meetings? They have them in the police department, in the community room. And now they work with and I meet with them on every monthly basis. They do all their community events with the police officers. There's ways to turn these negatives into positives and make our community work.
Yeah, real quick, Jeff. The big wake-up call for me when the text went off was it happens in small cities as well as big ones. Yeah. We as a city are blessed with resources, and we are going forward with body cameras, and we're also doing significant staff training in terms of emphasizing de-escalation. We sadly are not, though, blessed with the gift of diversity in our community. And as an elected official in my city, I'm nervous that my police force doesn't have a lot of experience with communities of color. And when a very difficult situation comes up, I want to make sure my people are ready for it no matter what, and I'm frankly a little scared because we don't have that gift of diversity. Finally, the doctors have a motto, do no harm, and when something bad happens, you try to make every decision you make following that help. I'm not sure the decision to withhold the video in this case is helping. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so guys, thank you for addressing that, because I think it's really important. We've got about 15 minutes for questions from the audience.
And the elected official panel, so let's give all of our elected officials a great round of applause. And as I indicated earlier in the program, I'm so proud that we've got high school representation here today. I mean, because you guys are the future. You guys will be up here doing what these people are doing, so I'm glad that you took time off of your vacation to come here, and it makes me proud. So it is now time for lunch. For those of you, if you want to know, if you go here and go right back to where you registered, that's where the luncheon's going to be provided. If you look at your tag, there's a number on it. That's going to tell you the table that you're assigned to for lunch. That concludes our morning presentations. I look forward to you at the luncheon. Thank you.